Hi, Aaron.
Good morning.
Morning.
Awesome. We're live now. So it's 1 minute past, so let's get started. We have a full house today, even though we don't have Brent. We have Aaron in and also have Michael, Jenny, and Jeremy and Spencer. So, Spencer, do you want to do a brief update on 182? Is that where we're at now?
We are at 182. We are almost to 1.9, which is pretty exciting. I merged the Meteor simple schema replacement last night into the 1.9 release branch. It has not been released yet, but we are very, very close there. So 1.82 is our current branch. 1.9 will be released. I'm anticipating today. And don't see anything wrong with it right now, and I don't see any reason why I wouldn't release it today. So 1.8.2 included an update to React 16. That was probably the biggest change in that point release. It does include, I guess, depends on what your perspective is, but we started dynamically loading several components, which is another performance push. It's element, lazy load, some of our other, transliteration. We're now lazy loading as part of our initial process here. So those are kind of the big hitters, I guess, for our 1.8.2 release. Is there anything specific you want me to talk about there?
Not so much. We also, in the docs, we have from Eric, we have docs on how to use the dynamically loading moment.js in a higher ordering component. And also Michael, Jenny updated our how to extend a product PDP page with a Google map for 1.8 as well. So definitely check those out. And then I think that's it. So we can deep dive in with you and Aaron about changes coming into the catalog. Let's get into that.
All right, what do you want
to know? What is happening? I actually don't even know anything that's going on, so.
Well, I guess Aaron, you and I can bounce back and forth on this one a little bit, but the big impetus for this change is, as probably most of you know, our product grid, when saddled with thousands of products, was not super fast. So that was our goal, was how do we make that super fast, especially on the consumer side. So we really believe that, when a customer hits your store, they should be able to load, more or less as many products as they need to without any noticeable delay. So the thing that we were doing up until this point is that the admin grid and the consumer-facing grid were more or less the same code. And so we were loading a whole bunch of unnecessary components. We were loading all of the products and all the variants in a way that was necessary for the admin, but really mostly unnecessary if you were looking at it from the consumer perspective. So the big push here with the catalog is that we are now denormalizing and kind of squashing all of the detail about products into a single document, pushing that single document into a new collection that we're calling the catalog. And then we are feeding the product grid from that new collection. Aaron, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think too that this has always been a direction that we had in mind, and we've been actually talking about this under various disguises for the last 2 years. And so it's not just about moving a product into the catalog that's a fully structured product, because that conceptually is exactly what the products collection was always meant to be. But we had also talked that we might have misnamed the products collection a long time ago, and that it should have been called catalog or content even quite a long time ago. And that was that conceptually we wanted to have one collection that was stuff that was meant to be published in its full form. And that could be both content, products, and other things. And so this is sort of maybe the first step towards that vision. And some of the interesting things is that really right now we're not applying any schema to the data in there. It's presumed that it's already been through some kind of schema in the past. What we are doing though is giving that fully fleshed out product a new type, so that you can identify what the presentation layer is supposed to be for it. So it should not only speed things up, but it should give a workflow for people to say, oh, I want to do a content management collection or some other collections, and you just publish into there. I think the other thing that this gets us towards is the idea that you can publish more than one version of the same product, and that is to say that maybe you have a date range for a product, or a different pricing on a product, or a different maybe even a different user's role that should view a product differently, and so we can use the catalog collection for that as well, versus the products collection is in theory the raw source of the product, but not necessarily the final version, right?
Right.
I do want to be careful though, because I don't want people to think that what we've done is our version of the EAV to flat table migration that happened in the Magento world a million years ago, which also was done under the quote of performance, but there was much more substantial issues there, I think, than here. I hope. I don't know.
Right. It does seem like that. I think one of the things that's important to note about this change is that we're not removing anything at this point. This is almost entirely additive, where there's a new collection. That new collection, contains, as Aaron was saying, a new type of product. The catalog product, which happens to have all the data of the old one, but we're not removing the old product. That product is still accessible. It'd be pretty easy for you to, if you decide you hate performance, you could go back to the old way of doing it. And we could show you how. It wouldn't be that hard. But what this does do is provide some new options. And because I think the product is all rolled up into a single, you have all your variants there, all your images there, that makes doing something like what Aaron was talking about with constraints around who should this particular version of this product be available for. That makes that possible, whereas that was a pretty complicated query when you had every variant in its own document and the overall product in its own document. You would have to go fetch all of those and specific versions of each one.
It's not that it's not easy enough to do, and as a peek into the future, I think tools like GraphQL help directly get the data that you need, but it's always been our goal that you should really be playing with the object or of the data set that you need all the time. And I think that was particularly difficult in product queries.
Right.
All the time. I guess the other aspect of why we're doing this is because the performance of the approach that we used for revisions is subpar to what we need it to be. And it's probably more robust than we actually intended early on. And we don't want to get rid of all of that for the sake of performance, but the revision searching and collation is the difficult part, or one of the difficult performance parts of the current products publication. And so this just removes revision control from the consumer's requirements. it doesn't remove any of that from the administrator. There's still revision control there. But I think conceptually, when we originally were brainstorming revisions, we had two ways that we thought about it. One was to say, let's do some kind of diffing on changed fields and identify what fields have changed. And you could do individual field level publishing. And, somewhere in the distant future, you would have all sorts of attribute publishing, and the other was to simply say, well, every time we make a change, let's publish that, let's save that as a clone of the product, and then let's publish that clone into a catalog collection when we're ready. So that was the approach I think that we didn't take, that we are now taking, that we probably could have taken. And so now we have, in effect, now we have two different revision control systems. But I think that you can effectively think of the revisions that exist on the product collection now are field revisions, and the publication flow to the catalog collection is product revision, or product. I don't know. I want a different word. Somebody give me a different word, but it's not a revision. A version.
Yeah, version. I think versioning might be the right way to think about it, because it would be pretty trivial to tag these as some type of date stamp of this was when this one was released, and move back and forth. We don't have a UI for that right now, but there's nothing theoretically preventing you from doing that.
Yeah, we had a sort of a down the version of adding multiple different publishing workflows to say, oh, I want to publish to the catalog, I want to publish to catalog A, B, C, I want to publish to another store, I want to publish to so-and-so user group, and having the little publish button be like a little drop down with many different publishing targets for the product. So effectively, now you have revision control when you're editing the product. You have a publish button. It's really just publishing to the catalog effectively. And at some point in time, we'll be able to add different functionality publishing flows.
Yeah. Should we talk about kind of where we're trying to go with inventory and pricing at all?
Yes, go ahead.
So one of the, I guess, and again, I think it's hard to determine, does this new catalog perspective enable us to do something that's different? Because I think we could have done some of these things before, but the new catalog is a push for us towards removing inventory control and removing pricing control from kind of the single source of truth being the product document. So I think it's
fair to note here that the reason pricing, and inventory on the product is really as a source of truth, but not as the owner of those, if that makes sense. So.
Right. But I think the goal here is that we can remove inventory concerns and pricing concerns from the catalog, so that if you're browsing a given product, that doesn't necessarily mean you have that product doesn't necessarily own on the quantity that are available. It doesn't necessarily own the price for that product. So you could put a product on sale, and that sale could be based on a certain time of day, or that sale could be based on a certain user group, or any number of other things, but that price would be independent, and you're publishing, a catalog product that is, all of the data, all of the, the title and the options and the variants associated, and then the price could be attached in from the side based on, even geographical concerns or what have you. I think that's a pretty big step forward in terms of what we want to do, and we haven't implemented the pricing abstraction yet, I guess, but that's something that we're looking at. I would say it's on the roadmap, although not scheduled for this next sprint.
Yeah, but the main goal here is to say that there's a different service to look up and provide pricing and inventory, and that doesn't have to be at the catalog or at the view of the grid or anywhere else. It can just be done on get price for X. Should be a little simpler to use, I hope, too.
And then the same thing is true with inventory. So there's a lot of different ways that inventory concerns can be similar to that. So the get inventory for X would be a similar separate service.
I think to clarify what I meant by source of truth there, anything can be the source of truth, but we always envisioned that there would be multiple services that might provide pricing and inventory. And our inventory package, that it was really meant to demonstrate that, because if you don't have an inventory system, if you don't have a pricing system, you do need to store that information on quantity and price somewhere. We don't necessarily think the product is the place to store that. However, we put it there because that's sort of the fallback mechanism. If you don't have any other engine calculating price, and we needed a place to observe changes to the product. So that's really what the reason for the inventory and product being there was, more as observers than anything else. And maybe that made sense when we were sort of collection hooked based, but we're also moving to hook events and getting rid of our other kinds of event hooks. And that also plays into how the services are separated. I think maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Spencer.
Yeah. So first off, I guess I see Lowen asked a question about, would this make implementing a per user custom price easier? And the answer is yes. That's kind of the goal. It's not just per user, but per geographical region, per time, per whatever. That's definitely the goal here, is that you can do pricing in a much more custom manner. I think the collection hooks removal, which is definitely another big change that's coming through, and I think we started that maybe in 1.7 or 1.8, and we'll be finishing it here soon. But removing the collection hooks, I think, is going to make our code a lot more declarative. I think it will make a lot of the code a lot easier to read. The collection hooks package was pretty imperative for us early on, as it made developing certain things a lot faster. Now that we've got a bigger team, I think it's easier for us to move from an insert hook or update hook or something like that, to having event hooks, as we call them, where they're going to run during a specific function or specific method on the server. I think it makes debugging a lot easier, because instead of saying, well, this happened after a product was inserted, where are all the places that a product gets inserted, you can say, well, this happened on the product create from admin hook or something like that, and you can know exactly where that originated, and it makes tracing those things a little bit simpler.
It also gives a single path to storing these events in a message bus, and then triggering actions in a distributed system, so that when we have multiple instances or different instances of reaction or other product, we can take action, not just within the sort of mono universe that is deployed right now.
Yeah.
That's a come back in 3 months and we'll talk again. Sneak.
That's something that I think has been on some of our drawings forever. Like, then we'll hit this event and then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It'll be magic. And so we're starting to have those events, but the logging and the doing whatever you want with it is, down the road a little bit.
Yeah, but as we abstract price in particular, that's an easy example right there.
Right.
Awesome. In the next release, going back a little bit, when we implement the new changes to the catalog, are we going to also be adding new changes to the way admin will work then? Because it sounds like that'll be really different on the merchandising level.
No.
Yes. uh, yes, that's a little bit of also a sneak peek into the future. But I think we've given enough hints about this that we can start gradually rolling out the direction. I think that the current reaction meteor application is going to morph into what we call the console. Attentively, I don't love the name, but we're trying to figure out something other than admin because that's so cliched. So I see you being able to run a reaction shop as it stands with a siloed mono repo and continue down that road. But I think everyone has, any observant people might have noticed that GraphQL branch has been introed, and we have a bunch of issues now in our next sprint for introducing GraphQL. And that's really our first step of quite a long plan that we've already been working on to move to a true headless commerce architecture, and where we separate out the consumer shopping experience into a separate starter kit UI that is built up of React components and is completely isolated and independent of the current admin console application, as well as the hint that I just gave about the distributed event bus allows us to start migrating to microservices that are independent of the core reaction. And some of the existing services in reaction are already being eyeballed for relocation to independent services as well, inventory being one of those. So yes, this is going to affect what we're doing right now is affecting how the conceptually we think of the current reaction admin. And it's really hard to talk about it because it is reaction commerce now, but it's only a part of the future reaction commerce. So I don't know, maybe we can do a ask the community what we should call these things or something. I don't know.
You need help naming things.
Yep. That's it. That's the preview of the day. No more. Just kidding.
Yeah, that was an awesome sneak peek trailer into what's coming next for us. Do we have any other questions?
I will say I see Lowen and Patrick both in the chat over there, and I know both of them have had contributions recently. So thank you to you guys for contributing. We really appreciate it. We love how active you guys are, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you guys with that.
Yeah, and I would apologize to Pat in particular too that we're a little slow on getting those things in, but all of them have been great PRs, and we're gonna try to speed that up once we get through 2.0, which is coming next. Chico, you look strangely frozen.
Yeah, did she get frozen off in
I think so.
Vacation land? Well, I see one more question, then maybe we can finish it up. But Zikiji, I'm certain I'm butchering that name, asks, is there any functionality planned in Reaction Commerce to allow saving card tokens so that a customer can just select a card at a later date?
Pre-existing cards, credit cards, yes. We've talked about this feature, and I think a lot of people would love that feature. It's a fairly obvious one, but it's not part of our core functionality and our roadmap. So this is one of those you might go over to the newly formed Reaction feature requests repo and put in the details, your thoughts of how that could be implemented. and we can look at it. We have the feature requests repo is a place for our community engineering team to just pick things out that the community might like, that would be big wins, and to start working on those independently of our core architecture and engineering on the main reaction. So there's a high chance that you could take it over there. You know, if you spec'd it out adequately, there's a high chance that we could code it for you. But until somebody actually writes a detailed spec, we have no motivation to move forward on that. It's a great feature though, and a good idea.
It is a great idea. Well, that's all the questions I see. Aaron, you got anything else?
I don't, except for what are we going to do without Machiko?
Yeah, our gracious host has dropped off the face of the internet. So
here we go.
I guess we'll close it out without her. But thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.